SDL0320 representing JVS. So I'm back here again for another review for a movie. And this by far will be one of the most controversial movies this year. But at the same exact time, one of the most skillfully crafted films from a brand new director debut from Nate Parker, portraying the role of Nat Turner in the movie The Birth of a Nation. There was a lot of buzz on the Sundance for this film. Everybody was like, this is an amazing kind of like crafted film. You know, Selma came out 2 years ago. 12 Years a Slave maybe a year before that. So there's been a lot of interesting, like really good, you know, slavery beat movies, you know. But it was just like the first trailer I looked at this one, it was like, this is something totally different. And how is this going to be portrayed based on just Nat Turner as an individual and the rebellion that he led, leading to the countless deaths of a lot of different people. Well, not countless, but it was the actual number. But I mean, in and of itself, it's such a heinous act to actually talk about, you know. I was like, how are they going to do it? But then I looked at the trailer, I was like, wow. And it was nothing short of that. It was, to me, I couldn't believe how well it actually was. That's my first impression of it. And you can look at my first reaction with my friend Sean that I did. But as a reviewer and as an African American, I am very privileged, one, to be an African American, and then two, to be a reviewer, and then another thing, to be a Christian, to be able to really get a well-rounded perspective looking at this movie. Because a lot of this movie, specifically the character or the person, the man, Nat Turner, I mean, he was a preacher. And at the same time, one of the things he learned to do first was to read, and that was reading the Bible. And so a lot of the things that he would see and do, and it would trace back to a lot of things he learned from the Word. Now, a lot of people can say you can use the Word for your own gain. I'm not going to go into that controversy. I'm just going to review this movie as a whole. I'm going to do a separate review personally from my spiritual perspective, but this is just going to be the review, okay? So let's go into the brass tacks. As far as how this was crafted as a film, the cinematography was on point. There were a couple different specific imagery that was like, the way that the movie is shot, it's shot like a normal based movie, but you know, like there's certain movies, the way that they're tonally shot, that you know that there's something terrible that's going to kind of come up, you know. This movie is plainly shot, but then you get these random beautiful scenery, like there's a straight cotton field, it's just like an open set, or like you see this one death sequence, right, that like you see somebody on the ground, they're just dead and the head's like blown out, and you don't like expect that. And one of the most hard things to watch was the acts of slavery. Like I think in this one, in the smallest amount of time, without going too far over the edge, they show some terrible heinous things that happen. I mean, seeing one person whipped, seeing somebody get dismembered, seeing somebody's like mouth get like pushed out. It's some very hard things to actually watch. But more than just the gore side, like the lynchings, seeing certain things that would happen, I think that they were able to capture it in a way that it really brought me into the environment of like, man, at the end of the day, if somebody was like trying to be mean to me, like your ancestors were somebody else's property, that is the best way to be identified and show it from an visual standpoint. Not just this is like slavery and saying that the word, but these people were property, you know what I'm saying? And people did what they wanted to with them, no matter what they were dealing with in themselves. And that's the other thing that they captured very well from the visual side. Is like normally they'll portray like the slave owners, you know, as being like these well-rounded, okay people. Well, a lot of them, they really weren't in this one. And it was really interesting to see the dynamics between the slaves and the masters, as well as like just their perspective as a whole, you know. And I think that was captured very well. Cinematography was on point with that. And I think the direction, is the way they decided to actually shoot certain sequences, made so much sense. Specifically, the very last scene is so visually shot. I was like, I've never seen that, you know what I'm saying? And I think that I appreciated the way that they did it. And then even the score, you would think is kind of like going to be like, you know, all upbeat hip hop. Like, no, this score, it has so much passion behind it. And when things would happen and transition, like I was caught up, like straight up. It was 3 or 4 different moments in this movie. I held back tears personally. And it's not just because I'm an African American. This is going to be a very hard movie for people to watch. from a visual aesthetic, you're gonna be like in the theater, you're gonna be like, how can I continue to watch this? You know what I'm saying? But it's very real. It's really on key. And that's the other part that I want to go into, like the actual acting. I mean, I did not know. Well, I knew about Armie Hammer and I knew about, of course, Nate Parker. You know what I'm saying? And I knew that both of them, they're pretty decent actors. But Nate Parker, he nails these cues of like raw emotion, as well as with the spiritual injection of his character. And that's the thing that I can truly appreciate. Not just like, all right, this man's just like, all right, let's kill this, let's do this, just because, like, no, you get to see from day one to the moment, you know, that such and such things happen at the end. I was like, man, it's like dawn and day, you know what I'm saying? Like, it really, you see that total transformation. And I think that people don't talk about that, what I've heard in different interviews and reviews, like this man, the way that he actually portrayed the character, he did an amazing job, and he used so much awesome biblical context as far as actual scripting, that I was like, man, this is wrong, but I can understand his justification of why he's doing these different things, because going through it with, you know, like I was like, wow. And then even with Armie Hammer's character, one of the things that I noticed about him in the beginning, like him and Nat's relationship, slave owner to, you know, like they were friends initially, you know, and it's really interesting to watch his downward spiral when he starts dealing with certain things with what's going on with him, which I thought that was something they touched on really well. And then the other one was Colman Domingo. He actually played Strand in Fear the Walking Dead. He was in this movie. He was one of the slaves, and him and Gabrielle Union, they had this interesting relationship. And it was like, dude, like everybody nailed their part. Specifically, the strongest people for me, if I didn't mention them already, would be Aunjanue, is it Ellis? I think it's Ellis. She plays Nancy Turner, which is Nat Turner's mother, and then Esther Scott plays like the grandmother. And I think that their foundation as people helped me to be able to connect with the character so much better. And that's the thing that makes this a really good story. And that's a good segue. The story in and of itself, the way they start from day one and showing him as a young boy and showing, like, I guess if you want to go from a spirit perspective, like the calling on his life, but I wouldn't call it a calling, because the means and what happens is like so terrible, you know what I'm saying? But then when you look at what he actually goes through and you get to see like how he is as a young youth, what he's trying to do, what he wants to learn, what he wants to read, when he sees things, when he wants to experience love, when he just tries to be a genuinely good slave. And I know that sounds terrible, but as him going to his own biblical context, like, you know, don't go and disobey your masters, don't go and be harsh against this. But there's a way of using the word of God against certain things that are not right. And that's one of the things I want to say as far as the story and just the movie as a whole. There's a very big theme that you don't see, and that's the presence of evil. In and of itself, it is not right to own someone as your property, okay? Like, I mean, if you look at prostitution, that's not right. But pimping somebody and taking them out, like, basically like their property, and that's not right. Okay, and then you go into slavery. It's the same concept, but you get to do whatever you want to. Like, it's actually a dog. You know what I'm saying? People are not dogs. You know, and that's the way that like slavery is. You know, and it's identified as such. And it's like for Nate, like he goes to the word, he goes to see stuff, and the more you start to see him going and like trying to preach the word and see stuff, you're like, how can this man tolerate this? You know what I'm saying? Like, at a certain point, right? When you think about the stuff that's kind of going on, and I know this is a whole different way, and I'll bring up more later on in another video, but when you start to witness every single day different minorities getting shot, or even if it's not minorities, just take regular people. If these are regular people every single day getting shot or like killed or something like that, at a certain point, right, you're not going to be able to just take it, you know? And I think that this movie identified that well as well. And that's why I want to go back to the whole evil side, is that evil is something that can seep into someone's heart, and it can do one or two things. It can do a fight or flight kind of situation. And I'm not saying that Nat Turner was evil, but I think that the actions that he did was provoked from it. You know what I'm saying? And even when I looked at the slave owner, like some of the things that his action, that Armie Hammer's character did, when he starts to go into drinking, it was like when he witnessed some of the things, it's like his character changed. And that's one of the things I without spoiling too much, like, is really interesting, that theme. Jackie Earle plays one of the most heinous characters in this movie. Like, he's the embodiment of it. It's just, he relishes in it. And there's other people that are around, and it's like, it affects so many different people. What we need to identify for the movie, for me as a whole, what I gather from it, is identifying something that's not right, and it is actually something that is real potent evil. You know what I'm saying? And when you get to understand that, and you put the blinders off of it, instead of just kind of going like, man, this happened then, this was this, and this is never going to happen here. But that same exact evil that was there is being passed down in a certain kind of light that is not being talked about. And that's the thing that I can say, that the movie as a whole, to show me that, you know what I'm saying? And that's not even from a African-American standpoint, this is from a Christian standpoint. Like, evil is real, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're all capable of evil. We're all capable of heinous things, regardless if you're the police, regardless if you're African American, regardless if you're, you know, even like you profess to be a Christian, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are capable of doing evil. You're capable of doing the wrong thing. And that's one of the things that you can see in this movie. And it's like, to see the very end is like, was any of this right? No. Could it have been avoided? Absolutely, you know, but it happened, you know. And what did it do to a people as a byproduct of it forever? You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things about the movie. The movie as a whole, as a title, The Birth of a Nation, it's like the backs of not just Indians and like Caucasians and African American people, but the blood of different things that happen in different events literally carries the weight of this nation. And it's like, even though we were founded under God, you know what I'm saying, and as a people and working together, there are a lot of different prospects which is wrong and evil. And it's like, we have to go against these generational things that have been passed down. And that's what the movie, to me, identified with. And as a movie as a whole, I think that it was symbolic of a lot of different things. And like, be honest with you, my girlfriend, I wanted her to review it with me. She was overtaken by emotion. She still have yet to even tell me what she feels about the movie, you know what I'm saying? And so, any movie that can do that, and I've always said this, y'all know this, any movie that can really not only make you think, but make you feel something and turn something, how can I not give it a 10? It's not even so much like, is this a perfect movie? No, it's a blueprint of movies I've seen before, and reminiscent of like Selma or Malcolm X or Roots, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, absolutely. But if this can make me feel something totally different from my personal perspective, then it deserves a 10. And I highly recommend you go and check it out. Not just if you're African American, please, anybody. Like, take yourself out of your own comfort zone and dare to watch this just for you. You know what I'm saying? And identify evil, not necessarily what Caucasian people did or slave owners did, but just the act of it. Is this right, what you're seeing this happening? You know what I'm saying? And when it's not, like, pray for our nation that this, not that it would happen again, but the actions and the motivations wouldn't come from the same place. You know what I'm saying? And so that's me. I apologize. I didn't mean to kind of go and preach or necessarily, but I'm talking from an interactional standpoint. Even if I was Caucasian, I would say the same exact thing. You know what I'm saying? So I really liked the movie. I think it was very hard to watch. There's some very rough stuff to actually see, but it happened, you know what I'm saying? But how do we come over it and come out of it, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully y'all enjoyed this review for The Birth of a Nation. I will be back doing another review from my personal perspective as a man of God, and even as like African American living in this world. I'm gonna try to do that on the Jesus vs. Sin page, so I'm not gonna do that right away. It's probably gonna be sometime later on in the week, but hopefully y'all enjoy this review. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Y'all have a blessed night. Peace.